we'll have this discussion.
Discussion? What discussion?
This is a discussion combustion.
Coming to you from Denver, Colorado.
This is Discussion Combustion Podcast with your hosts, Kevin Batstone and Arthur Raw.
Oh, wow. Okay, I was at that one.
Were you?
Year. Yeah.
Why do they call it Fan Expo? Why is it not Comic-Con?
Because there was like a lawsuit.
So San Diego trademarked Comic-Con. So for a while, Denver switched it to Denver Pop Culture Con. But then Fan Expo, which is like a way bigger like overhead company, basically bought it out. And honestly, I don't love what they're doing. We're going to go down to the Springs next year and see what's up with their con, because Fan Expo's kind of...
Was it lame?
It wasn't lame, but like they charge for panels, or if you want to get in, like if you want a guaranteed seat in a panel, they make you pay for it. Prices have gone way up on photo ops and meet and greets, and there's less like fun panels. It's just kind of turned into a celeb fest versus going and hearing like a bunch of Doctor Who fans get together and just talk about what they love about Doctor Who and stuff like that. Like that just doesn't happen anymore. And that's half the fun of that nerdy shit, is going and discussing the nerdy shit with other people.
That's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
So now it's just like they found a way to profit off of marketing the celebrities that are going to be available for pictures and autographs.
Mm-hmm. And that's really all they do. You'll get a handful of like decent panels. I think the only good one I really went to this year was like a horror trivia thing.
Okay.
And then beyond that, I just felt like I was there to shop and spend money, you know?
Yeah. Do you mind pulling your mic in just a smidge?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it was so busy on Saturday too.
Oh my god, it's so hard to get around.
Yeah, I couldn't even see anything, and so the best section for me was actually like the last hour before they closed it, because it started to actually empty out, and then I could actually see what was going on in there.
Well, and then Saturday, or was it? I think it was Saturday, they had the Hayden Christensen panel, and that was just an absolute shit show. The thing started like 2 hours late. Half the people in line didn't get in.
That's a bummer.
And I wonder if they got a refund, though.
Probably not.
No. No, it was one of those, it's Hayden Christensen, so everyone just kind of like sucked it up. That's fucking Darth Vader, but I wouldn't have waited 2 extra hours to get into that panel. Like...
People are committed to that kind of stuff.
They are.
They're probably camping outside, waiting for the doors to open. People get into it.
Oh, yeah. People get super into it. I want to say like 4 hours prior to that, we went to a panel, and people were already lining up for Hayden Christensen when we were going to that panel. Like, it was ridiculous.
I respect the nerd hustle a little bit. Like, when you're really into something, you're willing to wait that much, pay that much money, whatever. Because I do that with my things. I'm a huge NASCAR guy. I've done a lot of stuff with that sport. So I can relate to that in that aspect. That's something I geek out over.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it, but there are, like, limits, at least in my brain. Some people really don't have limits, but I'm like, my time is valuable.
Where do you draw the line?
Like at Comic-Con, or?
Like, how much time am I willing to put on the line here to do this or that? Like, how much of this is worth my time?
Considering, like, in a con scenario, for example, like bouncing off the whole 2 hours past the Hayden Christensen start time, at that point, you've probably been standing in line for 4 hours anyway, because you want to line up like an hour or two before the panel to get in seats. And that's probably where I would draw the line, is like if they came out and were like, we know you've been standing here for 2 hours, add two more to the mix. Like, I don't think I could do it. Fuck you guys, I'm going home.
Well, I guess it depends, like, what your purpose. If you went there just for that, like, you didn't care about anything else.
Exactly.
So I would have a large patience level if it was something that I was intent on doing.
Right.
But if it was like I was just there and I kind of picked it up and thought about doing it, then I would keep it moving. I would give it an hour. And then I would give it 30 minutes past, because I never believe in quitting when I want to. So I would at least give it like an hour and a half.
Get to the point where you're really going crazy about it.
Yeah.
Just like, fuck.
So, okay, all right. So I'll throw this out there, both you guys. Who would be somebody you'd want to wait in line to meet? Like, if you could pick anyone in doesn't even have to be in the Fan Expo, or just anywhere across the board, musicians, actors. Who would you wait in line to meet?
I've met a lot of people at cons over the years. One that I was very disappointed. It was 2017. It was the year I graduated high school, and Matt Smith was supposed to be coming, and I know him from Doctor Who, and now he's done House of the Dragon and Morbius and all of that.
Okay.
And he's way bigger now, and I don't think he really does cons anymore, and he canceled like the week of con that year, and it turns out it was because I think it was House of the Dragon filming and stuff like that.
Okay.
But I was so disappointed. He's my all-time favorite Doctor. Like, Doctor Who was what got me into like nerddom in the first place. My dog is literally named after his companion on the show.
Wow.
So Matt Smith is probably my
Yeah, if you're
my
naming
ultimate.
pets after characters on the program,
Yeah.
that kind of
That's dedication.
That's dedication.
Yeah.
Art, who you got?
Yeah, that's dedication. I don't know. I've been thinking about it this whole time. I can't.
Mine's easy. I'll go.
I can't.
Do it.
Yeah, no.
Arnold
you go.
Schwarzenegger.
Arnold Schwartz. Okay,
Nice.
that would be.
I mean,
good.
I'm a huge
That's a good
Terminator
one.
fan.
That is a good
Arnold's
one.
epic. Arnold, hands down.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll know it when I run into that person. like I'm gonna be like, oh shit, like I'm so happy. It's gonna be somebody that like does something like that's really important for humanity. Or
That's fair.
Yeah.
like it would be Nelson Mandela or something before he passed. It'd be like somebody like that I would want to meet.
Somebody that has an impact on.
I would want to
I
meet
love that.
Martin Luther King.
Ooh.
MLK.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, we did. I guess we
Yeah.
didn't say there was any dead or
I was
alive.
gonna say, yeah.
Or
like-
Tupac Shakur. Yeah.
Or Tupac would be
Ooh.
good.
Yeah.
Both good choices.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. See, now we opened up a whole can of worms. Though.
Yeah.
I would say if we're talking impactful people, like that's a whole different story. I thought we were just talking in general.
Yeah. Because now I'm thinking like Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Yeah.
He's passed.
Yeah, see, if you don't give me rules, then I'm gonna go
Just
rogue.
send it.
Art's a wonder.
I'm about to go rogue.
I
He's
love
a wonder.
it.
I feel like you and Ron Swanson would get along well.
I mean, both men's men. Okay, man's men's.
See?
I mean,
knew
my
it.
dad is
Man's
basically Ron Swanson incarnate, so we could always test the theory. Like,
Nice.
That's pretty funny.
it's the way I explain my dad to people.
It's like Ron Swanson?
yeah, I'm like, you ever watch Parks and Rec? Okay, think Ron Swanson, just less hair. That's how I
Less hair.
explain my dad.
No mustache?
Big old beard.
Good man.
Yeah.
And enjoys to do some woodworking and knows more than Home Depot employees.
Yes, he knows more than you, and he loves a good scotch and steak.
Okay.
Scotch and steak, my man. Yeah, it sounds like we'd get along just fine. I'm sure he's listening, so you're a solid lad.
He will, yes.
Yeah, so speaking about you and your family, well, we got Taylor in the house.
Yes.
And you are doing epic things. You have been you were a hairstylist for a long time.
Still am.
Oh, still am.
Yeah,
Okay.
1 day a week.
Okay. And then also working on yoga.
Yes, I just completed my YTT 200 or Yoga Teacher Training 200, which is the initial like base structure of any type of yoga teacher training. I also did a side certification in Yin, which is like the deep, relaxing, super stretchy, down to your connective tissues kind of yoga,
Okay.
which is my jam. And then my next steps are my RYT 300 to become a full 500-hour registered yoga teacher.
So what does that look like exactly? Like the 200, 300, 500, whatever? Like
Yeah.
what comes with all that?
So the 200 is your kind of basic fundamentals of yoga. 200 I would recommend to anyone who practices yoga, even if you don't want to teach. I think it's really good for just like deepening your own personal practice. You get the basics of breath work, the basics of the asanas or the postures, how to create flows, that kind of thing, and really just like build your skill as a teacher. And then the 300-hour course gets more in depth to like the philosophy of yoga, the more spiritual side of yoga. That's when you're going to get into the really crazy postures of like the arm balances and headstands and how to coach people through those safely. And then the full 500 hours, that's like the highest teacher ranking you could get. So you can either do 500 hours at once, or you can do what I did and do the 200 first, because the 300 isn't necessary, but it is, I think, good.
Okay.
So I didn't know if I was going to want to do it after my 200, so I didn't sign up for the 500 right away. And then halfway through the 200, I was like, oh no, yeah, I'm gonna take the full dive into it.
You're going to full send?
Full send. My end goal is to do yoga therapy, which is its own like sector outside of your basic yoga teaching, and it's basically using physical yoga as a form of physical therapy.
Okay.
See?
Well, and it's like yoga is not just physical, right? Because
It's
there's like this
hugely-
mental thing that's going on because you're focusing on your breaths,
Mm-hmm.
you're stretching your muscles and like creating this blood flow, and so it kind of helps people get into a more relaxed state.
Yes.
It's not just physical.
No, it's honestly, I would argue yoga is more mental than physical. The physical benefits are really nice, but I think more people will benefit mentally from yoga, which is another great thing. You know, I've struggled not only with physical health over the years, but with mental health. And yoga has always been a place where I can just kind of take whatever is going on in my life and leave it at the mat. And that's kind of the philosophy I've adopted. But yeah, like you'd be surprised. I think a lot of people think yoga is a lot easier than it is. They look at it as not really that big of like an athletic thing. And then it's fun. Like I'll take my dad, for example, I'll take him through a sequence and he is lost and confused. And granted, that was a while ago when he was first getting into yoga, because once I got into training, he's like, maybe you should teach me how to do some yoga. But it can really challenge you, and staying on top of the breath, on top of making sure you're in a posture correctly so you're not getting injured, is actually like the biggest challenge. And in training, they encourage you to master the poses before you master the breath.
Oh, wow. So the physical comes first, and then you kind of hone in on the breath work and the mental side of it. Mm-hmm. What would be like, continue.
No, what do you want to ask?
Well, I have so many questions. Because I don't do yoga.
Yeah.
As you can see, I do 12-ounce curls. So if I was like, where do I start? If I was to do, like, if you were to be like, all right, this guy's a rookie, what yoga pose would I start with?
I think starting in easy seat is always great. Anyone can do easy seat, and that's just a nice cross-legged position. You stack your pelvis in line with your heart, in line with your crown of your head, and just line everything up. Exactly. Look at you go.
Wait, so okay. So you would do it like on a flat mat or just on the floor or whatever?
Floor, mat, whatever's available to you. You can sit in a chair to do easy seat. I'm doing easy seat right now.
All right, I'm going to try this. All right, go to camera 4.
I'm already on it. You didn't even have to.
What do I got to do?
So just sit nice and cross-legged, kind of root your, what we refer to as your sits bones or your butt down into the ground.
Okay, good posture.
Yep, lightly engage the core. It helps straighten out the lower back.
We can't see you on 4, by the way. I'm just letting you know.
No. Here, guys.
Yeah.
He's doing beautifully.
It is. It's
Try
good
to
posture.
like relax your chest just a little bit. You don't have to puff it out too much. Beautiful. Easy seat.
Nice. Mm-hmm. This is nice. Make a podcast from this location. No, that was good. I had to try it. I was getting excited.
Say, if you want some real crazy stuff, I can get you into some more like twists and all that. But
we'll save that for the after hours portion of the program.
Word.
But that was good. That was a good start.
It is good because it's like movement is medicine, right?
Absolutely.
And then also silence can be medicine. So when you're doing this, it's like kind of meditative.
Oh, 100%.
And is it considered like strength training too? Like,
Absolutely.
Do people get stronger from doing yoga?
Absolutely. Especially like, when you get down to like the different sides of yoga, like I mentioned yin, there's a balance, yin, yang. The yang poses are the ones where you see people inhaling and going into one pose and then changing poses as they exhale, and you're almost getting like a cardio type workout from it.
Okay.
But especially with the standing postures, just, think like a low lunge, for example. If you're in a low lunge for a solid minute and a half, you're going to really start to feel that burn in your hamstrings, your quads. You're going to start to feel that shake, and you kind of just have to work through it. And through that, you're going to build a lot of strength, especially when you're working just with body weight. You are the weight. So, if you weigh 175, 200, whatever, that's the weight that you're training with when you're doing yoga. It's like having that weight constantly on your back when you're squatting or something like that. So it's definitely a slower build than to just go through strength training in a traditional sense, but yogis can do some pretty crazy stuff.
Oh, I bet. And so do you feel like, because you said like maybe some joint stuff was going on, like I don't want to like expose all that too much, but like you were dealing with some health stuff, did yoga help?
Yoga has been a big reason I'm able to manage my health stuff. I don't mind getting into it. Honestly, most people don't know about the disease that I have, so I love getting able to explain it. I have something called Shorman's disease, and it's a degenerative spinal disease. It causes my discs to grow up into my bones. It creates little craters in my bones. I've had 3 fractures in my back because of it. It causes kyphosis. It can cause scoliosis. It can cause a lot of problems.
Wow.
And for a long time, I was weight training to help build strength, to help strengthen the spine and everything. And that worked for a while, but due to the curvature in my spine that this disease caused, I developed some hypermobility in my joints just from my ligaments being a little too overextended over the years. And weight training was no longer the safe option. So my medical team was like, hey, you should try yoga. And I've been doing it on and off my whole life. My mom was a yogi when I was growing up. She got me and my sister into it at a very young age. But this is the first time in my adult life that I've had a really consistent practice. But I'm really grateful for that because it came into my life at a point where my physical health was tanking, my mental health was tanking. They told me I had to step back from the career that I loved, which was doing hair, because that's a hard job on the body. You're bending a lot in weird places. You're on your feet, 8 to 12 hours a day.
How do you keep perfect posture while you're cutting hair? How do you do that? Yeah.
You don't. And it's created its own problems, which is why I only do it 1 day a week now. But my doctor essentially was like, if you did yoga or Pilates as like a full-time gig, you'd be getting paid to do physical therapy. I was like, well, considering how much money I've paid you over the years for physical therapy, that sounds great. And so I enrolled in my yoga teacher training end of April this year.
That's exciting.
That is,
yeah,
that's terrific.
it was
Super
awesome.
exciting.
I did corporate America for like 6 weeks, learned it wasn't for me, and got out as quickly as I could.
Yeah, that's the name of the game there. Work for yourself, control your time and money.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big goal of mine anyways, and I always respect people that do that. They're like, I don't want this. I'm going to go do my own thing.
Well, and I used to do the hustle. I ran a Great Clips store when I first got out of school. I got into management really quickly, and yeah, the money was great. I was making real good money for, a 19, 20, 21-year-old, but I was miserable. I didn't have enough time to take care of myself. I wasn't doing the things in life that I enjoyed, and I'm kind of grateful that the pandemic hit, because that's where my perspective shifted, and I was like, do I want to work 70-hour weeks for the rest of my life and make good money but be upset, or do I want to move back in with my dad, do what I love, make less money, but be happy? And I regret nothing about the move back in with my dad, do what I love, and make less money, because it's been amazing, and working for yourself, I couldn't recommend it more.
Yeah.
It always brings me to that. Do you watch Schitt's Creek?
I'm
I've seen
familiar.
some.
There's this bit that they do about that's a write-off, and it's one of my favorite things about being a self-employed individual, is that whole little scene. But this is the first time those guys have had jobs. If you don't know much about Schitt's Creek, they were rich, they lost all their money. They've never had jobs in their lives.
It's a funny ass show.
Yeah.
It's one of my all-time favorite TV shows. But you can't go wrong with that cast either. Like Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara. It's beautiful. But gets his first job. The owner of this store leaves him with the store credit card, and he just starts buying a bunch of stuff for himself. And his dad comes in, and he's like, how did you get all this money? And he's like, oh, that's a write-off. And then he asks him to explain what a write-off is. Well, it's when you buy something for your business and the government pays you back for it. So who pays for it? Nobody. You write it off. And that's always comes to my head in tax season as a small business owner. That's a write-off. That's a write-off. No, nobody pays for it. You write it off.
That one thing, though, is because you have to, stay organized and, get receipts all year and just, put them all in one box.
And you have to save them for,
Yeah,
I have, a little planner. I'm very old school. I still like to write everything down before I transfer it, into a Google Doc or whatever for my tax guy. But I write it all down. I keep my receipts in the little month section of the planner until I have to do my full breakdown at the end of the year. But you have to keep that stuff for 7 years or something.
In case you get audited.
Mm-hmm. Granted, most of the professionals, they come with audit protection and all that kind of stuff. But with my luck, it would happen. So
you always got a CYA. Cover your ass, dot the I's, cross the T's. You have to. Someone's out there trying to get somebody.
So I have just an obnoxiously large, xylophone folder just full of receipts and documents from the tax seasons over the years.
No, you have a folder full of write-offs.
That's a write-off.
It's a folder full of write-offs. We have a whole closet full of Bud Light write-offs in there, and I'm going to write that off because that's a business expense.
Yeah.
It's a part of how I do my job here at Discussion Combustion.
Exactly. It's
So-
made the camera. It counts.
I think it does.
That's a write-off.
Everything's going to be a write-off now.
So
You would be so surprised what you can get away with writing off in hair world.
Oh, in the hair world?
You could write your
bet.
nails off if you go get your nails done because you can use them as quote-unquote sectioning tools.
Interesting.
That's the more you know.
Clothes,
Sectioning
since I wear just my street clothes to work, that's my quote-unquote uniform. That's a write-off.
That's nice.
I mean, it's good. It's good to know those little areas, right?
Oh, yeah.
The more you know.
But you have to be diligent, right? Some people, that's too big of a task. It's too much to say, or it gets overwhelming.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, because I've worked at a lot of corporate places as well, and that's tough too, right? So it's we're gonna have a hard time regardless.
Yeah. You got to pick your battles.
What would you rather have a hard time doing? It all for somebody else or for you? And how you said you have more happiness right now. And so since we're talking money and happiness, money doesn't create happiness, whatever illusion that is. Money is a tool, and we'll always get another check, but we won't get today back.
Right.
So spend the money, have fun with it, but try, plan a little bit for tomorrow. But
Exactly. Well, and I place a lot of value in trades like hair, plumbing, tattooing, all of that. I've gotten really fortunate. I'm covered in tattoos. I'm a heavily tattooed individual.
What do you got, 20 something?
I don't even know anymore. Too many to count. But I lucked out. I have a friend who does tattooing. She also happens to have an asinine amount of hair. Shout out to Jordan.
What's up, Jordan?
When I really got into doing hair again a few years ago, I took a small break during COVID. Just salons were shut down and I needed to make money. So I delivered pizzas for a little while. That's actually what I'm doing right now.
Get that hustle.
Hell, dude, you can make so much money as a pizza delivery driver. Like, people knock it, but you're essentially getting paid to drive around and listen to music and make pit stops.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, see, that's perspective is reality. So you're not doing like through DoorDash. You're working for like a specific chain.
yeah, I work for Jet's Pizza.
Oh, yeah.
Nice, that's good pizza.
It is good pizza.
Thick crust.
Their thin crust is good too. If
I've never had it.
It's like the good cracker crust.
I've only had like the deep dish. We should try the thin crust sometime.
Yeah, I would give that a whirl.
It's fire.
I'll give it a whirl. Maybe you'll deliver it.
I might. I work Tuesday through Friday, so.
Good to know. That's good to know. But yeah, no, it's all about the hustle, right?
Exactly.
Side hustles, whatever you got to do to get to your ultimate goal. You've already decided what you want to do.
Yeah.
You've made the sacrifices. You're taking the classes. You know where you want to go with it.
Oh yeah.
And then we talked a little bit off mic. Of course, shout out Lori again. Lori's gonna be back in Colorado.
What's up, Lori? What are you, just a fixture over here, Lori?
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. We know we love you, Lori.
Look, if
How
you're
does
lucky
this
enough
work?
to
Yeah.
have a Lori,
Yes.
keep her, because.
She's a wild one, but
Well, she even rocks the DCPC gear and stuff.
Yeah.
So like,
She's a
big
huge
shout out to
supporter of the
Lori.
show.
And thanks for the awesome referral. Yes, it's fun. But that's the thing though, is like, who cares what anybody else thinks? Like, go deliver pizzas, whatever. Do whatever you need to do.
For
pursue
real.
what you want to pursue.
Yep.
And who cares if people judge or not? Because here's the thing: is like, no one actually cares. Like, once you learn that because everyone's so focused on themselves that they might judge you while they're people watching, but like they don't really know you.
For real.
And they don't really care about what's going on with you. It's like, who cares what anyone thinks?
Well, and that's been like a big battle I've had to fight. Like we mentioned off camera before we started, I have an identical twin, and we are in very different phases of our lives. She's married, she has a baby. I adore my nephew with my whole heart, don't get me wrong, but I cannot picture myself at 24 being in that position. Like, it's a little insane, but I had to deal with this weird, when you're a twin, there's always this comparison, especially when you're an identical twin. Like, whether the family is drawing that comparison for you, which they definitely do, friends, whatever. And so one thing I've had to work through on this journey is, okay, yeah, she looks like she has her life more together than me, and that's fine. I don't need to be there just because my sister's there. Like,
When I feel like that's sibling rivalry is like is for real, because I've had exes that like with their sister and like those kind of scenarios and how the mom looks at it, and it's like all these extra layers. It's just let people be,
Right, and it's like, my parents have been nothing but supportive, and I'm really lucky for that. Don't get me wrong. I think sometimes they might wish like I had it a little more together at 24, but also it's hard to have it together at 24 in Colorado. Like, it's expensive to have it together at 24 in Colorado.
I mean, I know people that are 44 that don't have it together in Colorado. So there's that as well. And I think it just looks different for everybody, right?
Exactly.
Everyone's got their own walk of life that they need to go down.
Absolutely. And like, I draw from my parents a lot, and just watching them grow up as, we grew up with them. They were my age and younger when we were born, and so we watched them figuring their stuff out as we grew up. And even my dad, he's like, I love that you're pursuing what you want to do now versus waiting until you're my age and you're stuck as a corporate sellout, and that's how you make your money and that's what you do, and only later on in life are you ready to pursue like everything that you actually want and run your own business and do that. So I'm glad that I had decided to do it while I'm in my 20s, when I still have the opportunity to live at home and all of that, because like by the time I'm in my 40s, I don't want to be like still trying to get where I want to go. I want to have it be settled by then.
You want to do it now. You want to go full send all the way, go now.
Exactly. I want to lay that pattern out now so that by the time I'm like a grown adult, because I consider myself like a mini adult. I'm only 6 years into adulthood, so I'm a baby adult.
Okay.
Baby adult.
I'm a baby adult.
I don't know if I've heard that one. But that's fair. Because, again, like you mentioned your sister, right? Living a different life.
Yeah.
Different place, kids, whatever. And I think that, especially here in America, I think a lot of folks are conditioned that, like, if you don't have the cul-de-sac house and you don't have two kids by this age, then
what are you doing?
Then you're not that doesn't measure success, in my opinion.
Thank
you. The ultimate goal in life for me, I can only speak for myself, not everybody else, is happiness, right? And that looks different for everybody. If that's what that is for you, great. I'm glad you obtained that.
She loves it. She loves being a mom.
That's terrific.
She loves staying at home with the kiddo. I love being an auntie, don't get me wrong. Being the fun aunt is like totally my calling, but I am not ready to be just like tied down at home at 24, you know?
I never was either. I was. This guy's known me a long time. I've been a wild, unhinged tiger for many years.
That's the way to be.
That's just living life. You know, it's out there pursuing what we love to do.
There's a quote that I love, and it's funny because Lori and I have talked about this. You know, she does her little embroidery things. She is going to embroider this for me so I can hang it on my wall. And it's a Jenna Marbles quote from back in the day. And it's, life is short, but like terribly and insufferably long at the same time. And I live by that.
It's good. That's a good one.
Right? So, I'd rather, you know, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Like, might as well live the life you want to live because...
The old cliche statement, you only live once and you don't know. Tomorrow's never promised.
No, seriously.
We see what's going on in the world. We could be vaporized tomorrow. You know?
I wouldn't doubt if we were. Like,
honestly, it's possible. People think I'm nuts, a doomsday prepper.
I'll be happy if we go tomorrow. I can say that. I can say that right now. That like at this point, I would die happy if I died today.
Same.
And that's important because it's like, it is temporary. I kind of believe in like maybe a little bit of reincarnation, like because I do think like when people are born, like physically what we're made of has always existed and will exist in another form. So physically, but then mentally, there's like a big bang of consciousness, like because we're self-aware. So then there's like an energy that is created from a self-aware entity, right?
Exactly.
And so what happens with that? You know, like there's a lot I could go into there, but
no, same. Like you want to go down the reincarnation rabbit hole, man, I'm down because like that goes back into basic science where they teach you energy cannot be created or destroyed. So to not believe in reincarnation is honestly a little sus because where are you gonna go? Your energy can't be made, it can't be destroyed. So if you're not gonna just like linger in the ether, where are you going? You know?
Yeah, where's the mental energy going after death?
And we may not know the answer to that. I mean, there is some science to support some things, and
we might find out tomorrow. Who knows?
We might find out tomorrow.
Well, apparently, like aliens, like they're like confirming this now.
So I had a pretty in-depth discussion with my friend group last night in a group chat, which is not the best way to do it. I love you, Clint. And we have differing opinions on things, and I think that's fair. And one of the things, that was brought up was the aliens have been confirmed. Some people are, they don't believe it, they do believe it. There's not enough evidence, and it's like the only position I'm going to take on this is I think that we use the word science a little bit too liberally, and take that as well. Science says this. It's like, but what if the science is wrong?
Right. Science is also a guess half the time. Like it could work this way. It makes sense if it works this way, but it's hard to really know if it works this way.
Well, and then they'll say that this is the science, and then 6 months later they'll be like, actually, the science is this, and we were incorrect.
Just kidding, new science.
Yeah.
That's my point.
The science is changing and evolving.
And then you have scientists and doctors that do contest maybe that's against something that's along the narrative, and it's like, well, that science isn't right, but this science is. It's like, well, which one is it?
Right. Why is my science wrong and your science is correct? I don't get it. Like
that's the only thing I can test with it. And the whole peer-reviewed, when you hear that term, that term is used also too liberally because Art and I could sit here and peer review an article. It doesn't mean that it is what it is. It's just our opinion on it.
Yeah, who are the peers? So to mine own intuition do I trust.
And that's exactly what I said in the group chat, and that was also contested. Once again, I love you boys.
Well, and on the alien standpoint, there's just no way we can be alone. Like, there's no way we're the only
mathematical
people
uncertainties say otherwise, right? I mean, how can we be the only...
Well, even if it's just like a bacteria on another planet, like that would be
it's
considered
a life form.
That would be alien.
That would be considered aliens. Yes. I think everyone has this image in their head. This green slimy, coming in on a
Don't get me wrong, saucer. I love my little green Martians. I think they're precious, but
there's no question that it's just... It's too massive out there. I mean, we can't even see what's out there.
But do we? Okay, so we're all in agreement that yes, there's life.
I believe
there's
that.
Life forms on other planets, but
100%.
So, but we saying that there is intelligent life from other planets that's traveling to Earth?
I think that how can you say that there's no way? We can't sit here and say that.
I'm not going to say there's no way. I read a theory once, and maybe it was just like a little too much Colorado weed falling down this rabbit hole, but someone was like, the reason part of the ocean is like so unexplored is that's actually where the aliens go, and that's why like we don't really see them, but there's reports of these alien invasions. Half of the stuff that lives under the ocean looks pretty alien, if you ask me. And so I fell down this whole rabbit hole.
I love good conspiracies.
Of, like, all of these aliens actually decided to come to Earth, and their ships are in the ocean, and that's why like 90% of the ocean is unexplored, because the government is actually like, no, we know they're down there, and we can't go down there, and that's why they're like, we're just gonna leave it alone.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's fun. Have you heard about like this hollow Earth theory?
Oh, that's so 2019.
Dude, no.
Wait, Hollow Earth is a new one to me.
Wait, you've never heard Hollow Earth?
No, I've heard of flat earthers. But
Yeah.
All right, let's get into some conspiracies
Hollow
here.
Earth is on both poles. It's actually like a vortex that goes into the Earth, and then there's a crust on the inside of the Earth, and then there's a dwarf star in the center, which keeps it at like 75 degrees, perfect. And there's like supposed to be dinosaurs still living down there and all this other stuff, and that's why Hitler during World War II was like trying to go to Antarctica and like doing. That's what they say. And I think that's pretty far-fetched.
Yeah, the Hollow Earth one is kind of wild. I mean, it's up there with the flat earthers.
It's a little wild, but it's so fun to hear,
think
like,
about.
yeah, and just like get the inner workings of other people's brains, you
Sure.
know, because you're like, wow, your brain's got to work a special way to like wholeheartedly throw yourself behind a theory like that, you know?
Yes.
Not in a bad way either. Like, there are some conspiracy theories I will fully get behind.
Yeah?
I love watching Mandela effects. Those are some of my favorite conspiracy theories out
The
there.
Mandela effect, yeah. We talked about that on Happy Friday once. Yeah. Does the Monopoly Man have a monocle?
Yes.
Nope.
He doesn't. Yeah,
See,
I answered the
have you
same
seen
way.
the Fruit of the Loom one where they're like, did Fruit of the Loom have a cornucopia on the label? And everyone's like, yes, it had it. And then Fruit of the Loom was like, no, we never had that. But then people are like pulling out old Fruit of the Loom things
that
and
prove
showing
otherwise?
the cornucopia. Yeah.
Wow. So maybe there was a Monopoly guy that had a monocle, and now that's just become the same thing.
See, that's
feel
where
like
I'm
he
at.
did. I feel like
we all think he did.
I've fallen down the rabbit hole of like time shifts and all that too, because you wake up one day and all of a sudden they're like, no, the Monopoly Man never had a monocle. And you're like, I swear to God, every time I played that game growing up, he had a freaking monocle. Where did we jump to where he didn't have that all of a sudden?
Why do we all think that? Like, it had to have existed at some point. I don't know. Or maybe it just truly is that Mandela
I'm here for
effect.
like timeline jumps. That's what I blame on all of it.
Okay.
I mean, how do you know, right? Because, like, we're just living, and, like, our perception can change, and our, like, we can catalog everything, but how accurate was it, you know?
Exactly.
And so, like, there's always this like, layer of, like, did it happen the way that I thought it happened? Like, how accurate is my understanding of what I've even experienced so far, you know?
Yeah. I love it. There was another one, and it was ChickfilA, and they're like, who remembers ChickfilA having a K in it? And I was like, I vividly remember that growing up, that Chick-fil-A had a K in the chick.
Yeah.
Apparently it never did. It was just
existed?
CHIC. And I was like, I swear to God, there was a K there when I was a kid.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in New England. We didn't have Chick-fil-A's there, but we had Dunkin' Donuts.
I love Dunkin'. Well, I like the donuts from Dunkin'. Honestly, they need to step their coffee game up a little bit.
That's my favorite coffee.
Really?
Oh, it's the best.
I can't get a consistent coffee from them. Like,
Really?
I used to work next to one back in the day when I first got out of beauty school. I worked at a salon that was right next to a Dunkin', and so I would go there all the time because it was
What'd
easy
you order?
and-
Do you have one of the
Caramel
fancy
macchiato.
ones? Oh, see, I knew it was going to be something fancy.
That's
Well,
not
yeah, see,
fancy.
if you just got the drip, if you just got the regular,
Yeah,
then
exactly.
If I just drank black
It would've been
coffee like a
consistent.
heathen.
Well, no.
Yeah, and just put some cream in it or something.
Cream
you
only.
know?
I want
Cream only.
to, as we say in New England, give me a cup of regular with a splash of cream. That's all I want. It's delicious.
Like, I like a little sweetness to my coffee. Don't
You
get me
do?
wrong. I want to taste the coffee, which is why I always go for like a caramel macchiato, because that's like milk, espresso, and a little bit of caramel. It shouldn't
Is that
be
all
that
it is?
hard. Yeah.
It just sounds fancy to me.
I know.
I'm not fancy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not either. Like, I started ordering that in high school because, like, when you start going to Starbucks and stuff, it's an easy one. It feels
Yeah.
like
It's
a
sweet.
safe. Yeah, it
Yep.
feels like a safe option. And so I
Easy to
feel like
drink.
anytime I go to a coffee shop, if I'm like not really sure what I want to get, I always feel like that's the like safest route.
See, I like the Americano or like a vanilla latte, but it has to be a double one. 'Cause or else it's too sweet.
There's this shop, this coffee shop that's in the same parking lot as my salon, and it's called Black Rock Coffee Bar. And Black Rock is like my favorite coffee place of all time. And I always get the skinny caramel blondie from them. And it's like a caramel white mocha. But I get the skinny one because if it's the full sugar, it's way too sweet. It's too much for me. But if you get it with the sugar-free stuff, it's like perfect.
But do you feel like the sugar-free stuff like is not as good for your health? Like, because it's still sweet. Like, what is it?
9 times out of 10, it's usually like Splenda or one of those
stevia.
One of those substitutes. I try to like live in balance with all that kind of stuff. I used to be a lot more bothered by that. I actually had a pretty severe eating disorder back in the day, so I paid way too much attention to nutrition labels. And so as an adult, I've just kind of like forced myself to stop thinking about it so that little voice doesn't come back in my head.
Yeah.
Because like, I'll own it. I have a lot of issues that I was born with health-wise, but I also created a lot of issues for myself. Like,
well, don't we all?
Absolutely.
That.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of those, like, I could focus on what's in it, and I could focus on, like, the nutritional value and all that, or I could just be like, it tastes good, and it makes me happy, so I'm going to drink it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I spiral.
Well, I feel like there's that placebo, too. Like if you're eating something and you're thinking, this is really bad for me, it's so good, but it's so bad for me, then it's going to treat your body worse.
You're going to feel icky afterwards just because you put yourself in the headspace of, like, this is going to make me feel
Or if you
so
ate
bad.
the exact same thing and you're like, this is giving me energy, it's fueling my body, and I feel strong off this.
Exactly.
Like, the mind is such
So
a
powerful.
crucial piece. Like, I'm an overthinker, and I'll, like, overthink things, obviously. And with that being said, sometimes I have to like dial my thought process back to something just simple because I'll go like way too off kilter, and then I'm like making myself anxious about whatever it is.
Same.
And so it's just like, no, let's dial it back. Let's use the brain to change this situation that I'm creating for myself.
It's your mind is such a powerful tool, and like, not to get like, I'm a little hippy dippy girl.
No,
like,
bring it. We're into holistic stuff
my
here.
vibe.
I like all the things.
Okay, cool. Meditation, while it is a hard thing to master, I think is so beneficial to like every human mind. Honestly, if animals could do it, it would probably be beneficial to their minds too. I just don't know the science behind animal brains to be like, yes. But not only just centering your mind in that way, and it could be like 5 minutes a day. You could spend an hour meditating. You can do it how you want, because there's this misconception that you just have to like sit in silence and you're not allowed to think when you're meditating. You just have to close your eyes and TV static is in your brain. That's not meditation. Like, you let the thoughts come, you acknowledge the thought, you let the thought pass, and the whole point is just being able to do that. I feel like so many of us get stuck in the day-to-day of like, here's this one negative thought. I'm going to sit here and sit on this negative thought until I'm just spiraling and I'm driven crazy and I'm falling down whatever rabbit hole on the internet that's going to make it 10 times worse. Whereas if you just let the thought come, welcome the thought, acknowledge the thought, and let the thought pass, your life's going to be a lot easier and your mind is going to be a lot clearer.
It's true. This is true.
This is a good point, and I think we've all been there at some point in time.
Oh,
in life.
yeah.
I mean, where something happens during the day, and I was guilty of it, especially in my early 20s. One thing would happen, day's ruined.
Yep.
Poor me. You know, it's just, why is all these bad
Same.
things happening? And you just continue to fluster over it, and it's like, my whole day's ruined.
Yeah.
Rather than just taking a moment, okay, that sucked. We're going to take a deep breath and we're going to move on.
That's even, I've started to do that with like emotions over the years. And I always joke, like, I'm the friend that's been in therapy for so long that I could just be the therapist at this point. But like, there are certain emotions I've learned over the years, they're just not productive. Like anger. I don't get angry very often.
That's what I struggled with.
Is it? And it's a hard one to release when it comes on. And it's one of those things now where if I find myself getting frustrated or mad or angry, again, it doesn't happen often, but when it does, I just have to like be like, okay, why am I mad right now? Like, process it, think about it for a second, but then I just need to let it be, because I'm not going to feel any better sitting there being angry about the thing. So find something, whether it's within your own brain, whether it's an activity, find something that's going to recenter you and just bring you back to like, okay, I don't need to deal with that right now. Let's move on.
But I mean, you got like you're already ahead of the game, because some people don't even think about what they think about, right? So they might be angry, and then they'll just be angry, and they're not even thinking about being angry, and it's just happening.
Well, they own it as their identity, like I did.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just an angry redneck.
Yeah, that was I had an ex-boyfriend like that, and I would sit there and be like, this isn't even something worth being angry
upset over,
and he would sit, like, I think he eventually got to a point where he just liked being angry. It felt comfortable to him.
What's the ego?
And from my experience, I can't speak for everybody that has anger issues, because there's a lot going on.
Oh, yeah.
I understand.
It's a lot to unpack.
It's a lot to unpack. I've been through it. Listeners, viewers, if you're going through it, I've been through it. And usually anger stems from another emotion. And for me, it was a sense of depression, insecurity, stuff like that.
Mine
That's
always
where the
stemmed
anger
from
came out.
anxiety. I would get anxious, and then I would get mad at myself for being anxious, and then I would get mad at the situation that was making me anxious. And learning to actually control the anxiety made me to where now I'm like, if I get mad, you really had to do something to make me mad.
Piss you off,
It's not a feeling that I'm super familiar with anymore.
Yeah.
But back in the day, it was easier to be mad than just deal with the building panic attack,
Well, absolutely. And of course, this is my opportunity to slip in the quote that I say every single week. People do more to avoid pain than they will to gain pleasure. And so it's easy to stay in the dark and the negative and, that's just, my life just sucks. I'm not going to do anything to change it. I'm not going to make myself uncomfortable. I'm not going to take risks. Right? I mean, that's a common thing. That's a part of human psychology. It doesn't make you a weak person. It just means that's where you're at.
Well, going within yourself, I think, is one of the bravest things a person can do, because if you're really going to go and deal with the tangled mess of shit that you have accrued inside yourself over your life and actually deal with it, props. Most people just let that sit there their whole lives.
Yep.
And being a chronic illness sufferer, chronic pain sufferer, just some of the other stuff I've had to deal with growing up, I used to be that way. I used to just sit there and be like, oh my God, my life sucks and I hate it and I'm depressed and blah, blah, blah. And why did this happen to me? And eventually I was like, I could sit there and think like that, or I could just work with the cards I've been dealt and figure it out, because there's nothing I can do to change my health problems. There's nothing I can do to change things that have happened to me in my life, but I can change how I work on those. And yoga was a huge thing with that for me too.
Good for
I
you.
definitely developed a leave it on the mat mentality. So today I had an interview for a teaching position at a wellness center, and I was very anxious. So the first thing I did after that interview was get on the mat, because it helps me just process everything and let it out, and it feels like a safe space to do that.
Yeah, that's great that you found that, kind of as the scapegoat, instead of alcohol. For me, I drink a lot, right? So that's kind of one of my go-tos, something I'm going to improve on. But everybody has a way to release stress or get over their anxiety or whatever. That's a great way to do it. It's holistic. It's good for your body. And it stems off of originally how you got into it, right? Was this illness that you have, this disease with your back. Hopefully this will continue to fight against that, and you can move forward. And
oh my gosh, it's been amazing. My doctor's literally, and granted, I've been seeing my doctor for a really long time, and so we joke back and forth, and he's like, you're not going to need me anymore. And I was like, don't you say that to me. If I have to find a new doctor ever again in my life, I'm going to have a panic attack. But he's like, I'm making enough progress to where he's like, you don't need to come in. I'm like, but I still need my back cracked like a glow stick. So I do.
Like a glow stick.
So I'm curious, because my mother suffered from tremendous degenerative disc disease.
Yeah.
And she just completed her 7th major back fusion.
And she is doing better though.
Mom's listening, of course.
You're strong as hell, Vicky.
Mom listens to every episode.
You could say it into this camera.
Props.
We love Mom. She just had from her tailbone to the top of her skull is completely fused. And it took 7 different procedures. Some failed. Some had to be redone. They've gone through the front. They've gone through the back. She is tough as nails. Absolutely tough as nails. She wants to throw all the pharmaceuticals in the garbage. She doesn't even want the pain medicine. She's tough.
Crush it with your heel.
She's tough.
Hell yeah.
Just seeing what Mom's been through for most of my life, because she suffered from these back issues. I've seen what that can look like, and I'm still a little bit skeptical, and I've said this to my mother, of course, about what this industry is doing with these back fusions, because I feel like they're looking for consistent
Repeat customers.
I've said this before. I still believe that, but she's in too deep to the point where they had to do something.
And that's one thing I've learned over the years is once you have a surgery, you're going to need more. My doctors, I'm very lucky. I have a doctor who listens when I say, I'm not really interested in medication. I really want to try to solve these problems without surgery if possible. Obviously, I acknowledge that there are certain things that happen where if it's unavoidable, it's unavoidable. But I've watched my stepdad go through a fusion in his neck, and I've watched my mom go through some stuff like that. One of my dad's best friends had a spinal fusion, and he's like, yeah, that's part of my spine feels great. The rest of my spine now feels like shit.
Same with my brother had that happen too, and he's like, I feel worse after the surgery.
Yeah.
It's no good.
Yeah.
And so I started having my pain when I was about 14 years old. I was a freshman in high school. And I went to a chiropractor. They did an x-ray at this chiropractor. They completely missed the early signs of my disease. But then again, I've talked to ER doctors about my disease, and they're like, never heard of that. It's one of those things, like, the right doctors know what it is. Other doctors, like, for example, I had to get my gallbladder taken out in 2020, and they had to do a CAT scan when they were looking at what was wrong, and my spine obviously was in the CAT scan, and they're like, you have gallstones, but I'm going to circle back to that. What are these little, like, you have these holes in your spine and some of your vertebrae? I'm like, oh, those are Schmorl's nodes. And they're like, huh?
Yeah.
And I'm
like, let me teach you.
Right. I'm like, let me take you back to medical school since I know more about this than you do.
Yeah.
But
that's
it's
concerning.
Yeah. And it took them a long time to find it because it's primarily in the thoracic spine, so like the area between your shoulder blades and your upper back.
Okay.
That's where the primary kind of problems with this disease occur. And so what was happening is I was having chest pain. I wasn't having back pain. But I was having chest pain that was so debilitating I couldn't take a deep breath in. I couldn't complete gym class when I was in school. They literally had to waive my gym credits in school because I would end up in the fetal position by the time I was done.
Just an agony?
Yeah, oh my God, it was the worst. My dad had to take me on so many like late night ER visits because I was in so much pain that I couldn't sleep. I couldn't breathe. It led to panic attacks, which then made it hurt more because you're hyperventilating and you're crying and you're doing all these things. And it took one doctor when I was 18. So 4 years later, after they were like, we don't know. Here's some drugs, like do this. One doctor was like, obviously we've looked at your chest. Let's take a look at your back because your spine's the center of your body.
Everything's connected.
Exactly. And all of your nerves radiate out from your spine. So they're like, let's check that out because if nothing is coming back on these chest x-rays, nothing is coming back on these EKGs, something's got to show somewhere. And then I get a call after they do the MRI, and he's like, yeah, we need to chat. You have 3 broken vertebrae in your back.
What?
You have these things. You have this disease. You have scoliosis. I'm sitting on the phone in the break room at work just like, what? And all because doctors couldn't be bothered, I guess, to look deeper, especially like I was going to the same hospital every time I went to the hospital for this for 4 years. So it's like, yeah, obviously they saw last time I got a chest x-ray done. I got an EKG done. All of it came back normal. So why do we need to run the same tests again? But my doctor, I got really lucky because he listens to the patient, which not many doctors do.
Rare.
It's so rare, and it's so sad that it's so rare.
Yeah.
And
well, I mean, you think about a lot of people's like work ethic in general, and most people barely check the minimum boxes.
Seriously.
So like the amount of investment that you're normally going to find with people is probably not going to be that high.
Yeah.
And then also the amount that they actually care to never have you come in and pay them again.
Right.
That's probably low. Like they want repeat business.
Absolutely.
And so it's like one of those things where it's like, yeah, you almost do have to be your own best advocate, especially with dealing with that as stuff. And one thing that I would like to say out there is, you know, that I've learned over time is you can tell doctors and dentists, no, I want this done instead. Like they don't have control over your decision and what happens to you.
Is correct.
They're going to tell you like you need to do it.
They're going to pressure you.
Yeah, they're pressure.
Oh,
they're
absolutely.
salespeople, and so like I don't like that. It rubs me the wrong way.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like they're pill pushers, and like sure, there's some good doctors out there and shit. There's some good ones, but like there's also a lot of corrupt people that don't really care, checking the minimal amount of boxes.
And I could rant about the big pharma thing.
Oh, I could too.
Any day of the week because like I was on all sorts of drugs growing up between, you know, antidepressants, anxiety medication, stuff for pain, stuff like you name it, I was probably on it. Yeah. And when I was 15, I cold turkeyed my antidepressants because I was on the 3rd or 4th one at that point, and I was like, I still feel like ass, so I'm just why remember to take a pill when I'm still gonna feel like ass. And slowly from there, I just got off every other thing I was on because it made me feel worse. And I remember one day, it was like right after I turned 18, it was on the tails of another hospital visit for the pain I was in. More doctors being like, well, I don't know, here's some muscle relaxers. Like,
just throw pharma at it.
Yeah. And I was telling my coworker about it because I just started a new job. And she was like, you should try medical marijuana. And I was like, oh, no. Like, that's scary.
That's drugs.
Like, exactly.
That's drugs.
Oh, okay.
I was like, whoa, big drugs. Because my mom had we had kind of been raised in her household to be kind of afraid of that stuff.
Yeah,
like,
it's the devil's lettuce.
Exactly.
Yeah, but antidepressants are okay, you know.
And alcohol.
Yeah, even though it's manufactured and not just grown from the earth.
And so it was
That's
like a big scary thing. And it's funny because I didn't even live with my mom. I haven't lived with my mom since I was in like middle school. I've lived with my dad for most of my like late teen into adult years. And little did I know, my dad was like a super stoner back in the day. But I had this whole speech planned after this talk with my coworker of like, I need your help getting a medical marijuana card. Like, I really just don't want to be on these meds anymore. And I come in, I have tears in my eyes, and I'm starting to talk to him. And he's literally like, I've been waiting for this day for so long. Like, tell me what you want. And I was like, what do you mean, what do I want? I'm like, you tell me what I want if you've been waiting for this day. Like, I don't get it. But it has solved, like, every problem. It helps me manage my pain. It helps me sleep. It helps me relax. Like, I remember the first time I got stoned, I cried because I was like,
this is epic.
I knocked on my dad's door. I was like, does being high mean you feel really, really heavy? And he's like, yeah, you're stoned. Go to bed. I was like, wait, is this what relaxed people feel like all the time? And then I just started crying. So I was like, I've never been relaxed in my life.
Jeez. Well, kudos though, because
that's great.
You know, and same to you, Kev. Kudos to both of you for putting that because I feel like
the same age too.
I feel like the prescribed like antidepressant stuff, like sure it does help people. There are chemical imbalances out there. I'm not doubting the whole system.
No, I'm not either.
But at the same time, like they're like don't actually try to fix problems. They're like, here, just take this pill and it's gonna help, and then you're gonna take this pill for the rest of your life. And they never sit there and actually talk to you like, hey, well, what's actually bothering you? Like, you have to face that.
Exactly.
And it's like you're never ever going to feel more fulfilled until you fight your demons. Like, you have to
and
fight.
And that's exactly it. And I'm so lucky. Like, my doctor, he's great. And, you know, I've gone to the ER and been like, I'm in pain. And they're like, well, you have THC in your system, so that's probably making it worse. I'm like, no, it's the only reason I can speak to you at the moment, actually.
Meanwhile, how about morphing?
Right.
Well, that's an example right there of why they want Big Pharma to win. Because if THC is going to be the go-to, if you're going to use, you know, medical marijuana, it's like, well, now we're losing profit on pain medicine.
Right. Which makes me happy. I'm like, I'm going to take that profit right out of your pockets because
I'm not going on this shit.
Like,
it's garbage. It's
every single medication they put me on minus lorazepam always made me feel like ass. And lorazepam was on an as-needed basis. I used to get severe panic attacks. Is
that like an anxiety thing?
Mm-hmm. So the reason antidepressants didn't work for me is I have borderline personality disorder. And I feel like that one is a very stigmatized issue. And so what I didn't know at the time is those weren't necessarily panic attacks. They were BPD episodes, but it was the one thing that could calm me down in those moments.
What's a BPD?
BPD, borderline personality disorder.
So what does that mean exactly?
So borderline personality disorder is it's kind of what people think of when they think of bipolar disorder, where 1 minute you're like in a great mood and then a minor inconvenience happens and next thing you know, you're completely depressed. I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to have a mental breakdown.
Okay.
And then, you know, an hour passes and you're like, all right, I'm good. On to the next thing. And I saw someone on the internet once refer to it as bipolar express.
Bipolar express.
And that's like my favorite way it's been explained. But it's a trauma-acquired disorder. It's not a chemical imbalance like most mental health issues. It's something that your brain kind of puts in as a coping mechanism when you've had to deal with certain things and you didn't know how to handle those things. So BPD.
Okay. I didn't know that.
It's like one big trauma response, basically. And so I was on all these antidepressants for years, being like, why aren't these working? And the whole point was I didn't need SSRIs. I didn't have a problem with my serotonin levels. My serotonin levels were completely normal. My brain just, if anything remotely freaks me out, goes into like survival mode. And it took a long time to manage, but I have a really awesome therapist, and she's been amazing with that. But everyone is so quick to just throw drugs at the problem versus get deep into figuring out what's going on. So I've been in therapy since I was like 7 years old. I've seen a lot of therapists over the years. And when I finally found the one I'm sticking with now, I've been seeing her since I was 17. So she's seen me through a lot of phases. She started as my eating disorder therapist. I was seeing her and a nutrition counselor like simultaneously. And then I was just like, congratulations, Sharon. I like you, so you're stuck with me now. And it's been 7 years and it's been great. But she, after I want to say about 3 years of us working together, she was like, I don't think that they got your diagnosis right. I don't think you have major depressive disorder. I would like to go through the evals for borderline personality disorder. And then I start to think Girl Interrupted, and it sent me spiraling a little bit because like they make that look like a really intense, scary thing in that movie.
Sure.
And it's really not when you know how to manage it. If you don't have the like tools in your box to like regulate your emotions and be able to acknowledge like, okay, this is just like a thing. It's going to pass. Take a breath, like move through it. Like I'll literally be like having a panic attack on the phone with my mom and still being like, no, it's fine. I'm going to be good in 15 minutes. Just let me like get this out and then we can go. Like, but it takes a while to become that kind of self-aware. And it also...
You have to go through it a little bit.
You do. And then one day you wake up, you're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense as to why when this, like, I remember one day in beauty school vividly, and I still laugh about this, like, to this day. My cosmetology teacher did not know what to do. He was so freaking concerned.
Okay.
It was my senior year of high school. I had like a block schedule where I was completely off from the high school on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I would just go to the cosmetology school in the afternoon. And so one day it was like, I had to get my oil changed, that kind of thing. So I got my oil changed before I went, and I was driving a shitty car. It was my high school car. So they come in after the oil change, and there's like this laundry list of shit that's wrong with my car. And as a little 17-year-old, I'm freaking out.
Oh my gosh, I can't
I'm like,
pay for all this.
I don't have $2,500. Yeah. I mean, I don't have $2,500 now to fix my car, but I definitely didn't have it back then, so I'm
Welcome
freaking
to
out.
America.
Literally. That's why the AC in my car's still out. So,
Own it.
but I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let this ruin my day, because we were going to have, like, it was a free day at the cosmetology school, and those were the days that we got to, like, color each other's hair and stuff like that. So I was like, no, I'm going to have a good day. So I went and I got my Starbucks. It was pumpkin spice latte season. This literally threw me off pumpkin spice lattes for the rest of my life. I go to Starbucks, and it's like down the street from my school. So I order my coffee. I don't take a sip of it because I'm like, I'm just going to get in the car, drive the block over to the school. So I sit down. I'm clocked in at the school because, like, cosmetology is done by X amount of hours you have to complete. So they, like, monitor our hours that way. And I take a sip, and I immediately spit it back out because there was no coffee in this coffee. It was just, like, hot milk and allspice. And I don't know how they managed to fuck that up so badly. But I was like, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I just started, like, sobbing hysterically. And my teacher just kind of looks at me, and he's like, Taylor, do you need to go home?
You're like, I was really depending on that pumpkin spice latte.
No, literally. I was like, I needed that to solve all of my problems, and it made them worse. But I was like, I literally had a mental breakdown over a pumpkin spice latte because that was the thing that day that just, like, set me off.
That was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Literally. So he's like, do you need to go home? And I was just like nodding and crying. And I want to say I sat in the parking lot for another like 30 minutes before I even let myself drive. Just 'cause it's like, why are you crying over a stupid fucking coffee? Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, you're laughing about it now. So
oh, yeah. Now it's hilarious.
Experience.
But I'm also one of those types where I'll, like, drop something traumatic casually into conversation. And some people either just, like, keep going, or I get a look like, did she mean to say that?
Like, you okay? You're making light of it now. Okay, she's good. She's good.
Yeah.
And my best friend, like, she'll sit there and she'll explain it to people because I don't really, like, it doesn't turn off. I'm just like, truth bomb. And strangers are like, what the fuck is wrong with her? And she's literally like, oh, no, that's just Taylor. She's going to do that. Just, like, get used to it. But she's also known me for like 16 years, so she's incredibly used to it.
Well, I mean, look, life can attack us from a lot of angles.
And it will continue to.
Yeah, it's not going to stop.
It doesn't just end.
Yeah,
No.
it's relentless. Like, there is no finish line.
Nope.
No, and it's every day is going to be a battle. Like,
right.
To quote Art, he says, are you ready to put your armor on and go to war with yourself every day? Because it's so true. You alluded to it with, working through whatever you have to do. You acknowledge that this is how I'm feeling. It's going to pass in 15 minutes. I have to do the same thing with my anger management. Right? It's not like Goose Fraba, count to 10, and everything's fixed. It's a constant battle that you have to be consistent with.
And it's also like one thing, and I've had this conversation with my grandma too, because when I first got, that generation, the like 60s, 70s, 80s, mental health wasn't like a thing for them. And like, props to my grandparents, they've always been very supportive. They're like, okay, so like you got diagnosed with this. What does it mean? Like, explain it to me. And so when I was explaining BPD to my grandma, and I was like, it's a trauma response. She's like, well, like, wouldn't everyone kind of have that then? I was like, no, because here's the thing. Like, something happens and you're like, for me it was traumatic, but for that person it was just a normal fucking Tuesday. Like, everyone processes things differently. What traumatizes me might not traumatize you, might not traumatize him. Like, there's no right or wrong in those scenarios. And so that is another thing that's helped me through it, is like not diminishing my own experiences, just being like, oh, well, this person wouldn't get so freaked out by that, so why am I? It's like, okay, maybe they wouldn't get freaked out by that, but that's not me.
Or maybe
like,
they are freaked out and they're just really good at hiding their emotions. Yeah.
Which is probably more common than we think.
Exactly. And like there's been this big blow up on the internet in this past year of people being like, yeah, so you know all those like quirky little things you do, it's probably autism, my guy. It's actually probably not just a little quirk. And so now everyone on the internet is like, am I just weird or am I autistic? And now there's become this draw between borderline personality disorder and autism, because people with autism can't fully express their feelings and emotions in the ways that normal people do. And so they develop things like BPD as coping mechanisms and stuff like that. So it's a really weird thing. ADHD is now considered to be on the autism spectrum.
Why is it all going that way, though? That makes, like, I don't know. That's going back down the conspiracy rabbit hole again, because I've heard vaccines have caused autism. I've heard different things in that nature.
Yep. I don't think that there's I'm not going to get into the whole like vaccines cause autism thing. I think South Park did an excellent job with the episode they did on that one with Cartman and his mom. I don't necessarily believe that. I don't necessarily think anyone on this earth is neurotypical either. I think we all have a little bit of neurodivergencies, and someone else's is just going to be a little different. Unless you're like just this completely perfect, prim, proper, put together person, like it makes me think of that episode of SpongeBob where they try to make him normal, quote unquote, and they like smooth out all his holes and he's not square anymore, he's round. And
I don't know if I saw that one.
It's a great one. But they're trying to make SpongeBob like not SpongeBob. They're taking away SpongeBob's sparkle.
They're trying to make him fake.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what America's doing to a lot of people.
Exactly. And so I feel like people now are like, oh, well, I'm just the way I am because of XYZ thing. And then there's other people that are like, well, your brains just work differently and da-da-da-da-da. But I think that just everyone's brain works differently than the other person's brain. I don't think that there's like one standard we should be using for like a normal functioning brain, which is why the autism spectrum is a little bit weird to me, because I feel like we'd all probably technically fall into the autism spectrum if you really like dove down the rabbit hole enough. It's just like we're not all like Sheldon Cooper types of autistic, and we're not all like the nonverbal types of autistic. Like,
yeah, Sheldon Cooper. That's good. That's a good reference. That's a good reference. This is my spot, by the way.
You're in my spot.
Oh, it was a great show. No, I mean, all kidding. It's no laughing matter, of course. We're just having fun with it. It's a real thing.
It is.
People are dealing with stuff. I mean, mental health is a huge issue for sure.
Absolutely.
You know, we all have our own battles to fight, and
yeah.
everyone's dealt a different hand. Some people aren't as fortunate as others, and you know, even the ones that are well off and have money and cars and happiness and all this stuff, so they think.
Right. I was like, do you actually have it though?
Yeah, exactly. It's a facade, and they're living on social media, and they're looking for the likes and this and that, and that's the validation. And it's like at the end of the day, they're like, I don't feel fulfilled.
Right. Is like if you looked at my social medias, you would never know I went through anything. I would look like a normal 20-something-year-old just like out there living her life. It's like when you actually get down to the nitty-gritty of getting to know a person and like that kind of stuff is when you're going to figure them out. You're not going to know anything about them from what you see on a screen. Like you're not even like outside of like deep conversations like this, you're not going to get to know anyone. Like no one should make assumptions.
It's all surface level, and I feel like everyone can have a level of a brain disorder, or like because we could all treat ourselves wrong, and I feel like a lot of this stuff is labeled incorrectly, and like we've already talked about the permanent patient thing, so there's that. And my advice to everybody out there that is struggling, and we all are in some sense of fashion, is to acknowledge it. And that's the toughest thing too, is to actually acknowledge, I'm doing shitty right now. I'm making horrible decisions right now, and I know that I'm doing the wrong thing. Yep. Intuitively, I know that. How do we actually look at that? So, and that's a tough process to actually acknowledge where we're lacking, where we suck. Right. For lack of better words, like. And then you have to like become better, but then it's a daily thing. Like it's not like you're just gonna
choice. Like I don't think that anyone just wakes up and decides to be depressed. Obviously that's something you can't control. However, you can wake up and choose to feed into it and lay on the couch all day and be lazy and eat like shit and make yourself feel worse. or you can wake up and be like, what's going to actually pull me out of this? And that's the conscious decision you have to make every day, is to not just like let that darkness that brews within everyone. I feel like I don't think anybody is just 100% happy and perfect 100% of the time.
No, and
it's unrealistic.
Yeah, that's unattainable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you got to just wake up and make the choice of like, am I going to let this affect me today, or am I just going to go on and live my life? Because no matter what, this shadow is going to be here, so I can either let it hang, or I can let it go to the background and keep going with my day.
Well, one thing I think here too is that like it's going to suck for a little bit. Like when I was getting off opiates and shit, like everything, there was no color in the day. Like there was just no color. Like I couldn't find a glimpse of happiness or light. But then by sticking to it, and then like months later, like all of a sudden,
you like wake up one day.
It turned into a brighter vibrance than I've ever seen before. So it's like,
beautiful.
You know, those are my piece of advice is yeah, you have to like acknowledge it. Right. You have to acknowledge your downfalls, and then you also have to stick in it long enough to go through the suffering, because you have to suffer in order to get better. Like you don't just get better in 1 week. Like you have to continue to do it for months, even when you don't feel like it.
Yep.
Like there's like what you're saying, like, are you gonna feed into the depression today? When you woke up, did you look outside of your window and like be like, you know, I might feel depressed, I might feel gloomy, but I'm thankful for that cloud or something, you know. It's tough. It is tough.
It is. And it's like, especially when you have spent a good chunk of your life just in that kind of hole, like letting...
You kind of accept it. Like, you're like, this is who I am, like what you were talking about with your anger management stuff.
Yep.
You're just like, this is part of me now. And it's like, it becomes a personality trait almost. And that was like the hardest cycle to break when I went on my like little healing journey these last few years, was just letting myself be down and dark and depressed, because it wasn't doing me any favors. It wasn't doing anyone around me any favors. I wasn't really fun to be around. Like, one thing, this is like, again, more weird hippie dippy shit. Like I'll say this stuff to my dad and he's like, can you fucking not? But like, I did a lot of shadow work outside of therapy, and shadow work is like the scary shit. That's going within yourself, identifying the stuff that fucked you up in the first place, and deciding whether or not you're going to deal with it.
Yeah. You got to go deep.
You got to go deep. Like I did a lot of like meditations on that to just really go within myself there, and it sucks, and you're gonna feel not great when you're doing it. I think healing in itself is a really painful journey, but you're gonna wake up one day and look back and thank yourself a year ago for going on that journey, because now you've also built habits where you don't let yourself get into that really dark space again. Like there hasn't been a day since I decided to go on this journey where I wake up and I'm like, I just need to be depressed and lay here and make sure everyone around me knows how bad I feel and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, can I make your day shitty too?
Right. Since I feel bad, I need you to also feel bad, and then we can feel bad together and bitch about it.
Misery loves company.
Exactly.
Can we just complain about everything together and not do anything productive?
And I've gotten to a point now where like that bothers me. Like if I hear someone like complaining, they're like, oh, like I really don't like this thing that's happening in my life, and I feel really bad about myself, and I wish I could do this, and I'm like, then do it, like do the thing. Like, well, but if I did that, then I'm like, I'm not gonna fucking feel bad for you, man. Like you can make the choice to be better if this thing is bothering you so much, or you can shut up about it if you're not gonna fix it.
Like, there's that fine line between venting, which is absolutely healthy and necessary, and then complaining.
There is.
And so I'm always like, all right, I'll give myself 5 minutes to vent on something, and if I didn't get it all out within 5 minutes, then shame on me. And if I keep going, then I'm literally complaining.
Yep.
Sure.
And I'm like, I gotta shut myself up.
Venting is so important, and that's like I always explain, like, and my mom has gotten way better about it. Like when I was going through like the BPD episodes and stuff like that, before I was able to really identify them, I didn't know how to deal with them well, and so now like my friends or my mom or my dad, and usually not my dad, but whoever I'm ranting to in that moment about what's going on, I'm like, I'm not looking for advice here. I just need to like get this out of my system. Give me 10 minutes to just get this out for a second, and then we can have a normal conversation. But we will not be able to have a normal conversation if I can't just like bitch about what's happening for a minute here and let it out. Like,
well, and it does help. So
it does.
So if like, I'll give advice to anyone tuning in. If you're there for somebody, maybe start the conversation with like, hey, do you want advice? Because you want to tell me something. Do you want advice, or you just want me to listen? Like, I feel like that's a good question to ask. And then it also, as a listener, takes the pressure off of whoever
you don't
is
have
listening.
to think,
Because
like,
then you're like, okay, either they're going to want advice or just have me listen. And so I think it's good, but it is kudos by, you know, taking the journey, taking the plunge. I mean, I'm 36 and I've changed a lot in like the last 4 years, and it's because of acknowledgement of my shortcomings that I was doing to myself. Really.
Right.
You know, so kudos on that.
Thank you.
And then, you know, keeping it going and like understanding it, because that's where, I mean, we've been talking about it. Like, a lot of people aren't acknowledging this stuff.
Right.
They're allowing doctors to prescribe, you know, fixes, and they're just popping a pill and never actually fixing the issues.
Exactly.
So there's like a bunch of different layers. And in my opinion, if you really want to get it done, then you can't just do one thing. You have to attack it from 5 different angles or 7 different angles, whatever you want to do. Like, you come up with the plan, you attack it from every single angle possible.
Absolutely.
And then at least if I failed on one angle, like, I got 4 more coming at it today.
Exactly.
You
like,
know?
there's always going to be something. And if you can't tackle that problem today, then tackle that problem at a later date. Maybe there's another problem that needs to be tackled before you can tackle that problem. But I can't justify just sitting there and complaining and bitching and moaning and then not doing anything about it. And I was even guilty of that when I first found out what was up with my back and everything. I kind of let it like hold me back from doing things and used it as an excuse, where the reality is, once I started physical therapy and got down to like the nitty gritty about what it was, I like to understand. Like, when someone is like, you have this problem, you know, I want to understand it down to like its core. How does one develop the problem? Where does it come from? What are the best ways to solve it? What does it affect? And you can't do that if you're not even willing to try. I felt very lucky that I had a doctor who wasn't like, he was more like, what approach do you want to take here? And that made me feel really comfortable, because I don't like taking a lot of medications. I really want to avoid surgeries if possible. So he's like, okay, with that being said, then I need you in here twice a week doing PT for regular adjustments as well. Then we're going to have you do PT at home on top of that. And I need you to do X, Y, and Z. And we're going to watch you progress through that, versus here's some painkillers. Let's get you scheduled to do this medical procedure and fix it that way. So I wish...
It's almost like, here's some painkillers so you could go lay on the couch.
Yeah.
And then...
Because you can't function on the painkillers.
And then you're going to get surgery done. And then
So
once that's done, go lay on the couch some more.
Right.
And then once that all fails, because, you know, this and that.
And for so long, I was like, oh no, I can't move my body because of my pain, or I can't move my body because what if I break my back again, you know? And ultimately it came down to like, no, I just didn't want to move my body. I had gotten so used to being stagnant because of the pain that had caused me to be stagnant that I just didn't want to move. And when I got past that and actually started doing the movement, I realized I did want to move. I just wasn't doing movement that worked for me.
That wasn't like your choice to start. Like, it was progressive.
Exactly.
You progressively got into that place.
And we looked at like every avenue. There was a hot minute there at 18 years old, I was being looked at for fibromyalgia because my mom had it, and they're like, we cannot figure out why this child is in so much pain. Maybe she just has that. Thankfully I don't, but like there was a hot minute where I was like, so I'm just going to be in pain for the rest of my life. Okay, that's cool. That's sick. Love that for me. And now it's like, you know, if I go to Elitch's and really get my shit rocked on the roller coasters and stuff, yeah, I'm going to come home and I'm going to be sore that day and I might hate my life for a little bit, but I did a fun thing and I'll feel better in the morning.
Yeah, true.
Well, and you know that, right? So repetition is a mother's skill. You've been through it enough. You know how your body's going to respond to certain situations.
So I've just like, if I know something is going to like, I don't like using the word trigger, but if it's going to trigger something, like that's an acknowledgement I have to make. And then I make the choice of like, well, do I want to do that right now? Or should I maybe like not do that? So like 2021, my family went to California. We went to SeaWorld that day. My mom and my sister were like, let's get on a roller coaster. I was like, see, if I do that this early in the day, I will not be able to walk through the park for the rest of the day. So you guys have fun on your roller coaster.
Yeah, knowing your limits.
Right. Maybe we'll circle back to that at the end of the day when we're about to go home and I can like lay down.
And that's fine. And like, look, for anybody who's struggling with that, like making your own decision, going against the grain of your family or friend group, like there's actually a level of respect that that whole group is going to gain from you for just being centered and doing what you know is best for you.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's okay. Like, it's okay for other people to go do things and you link back up afterwards. It's
and
fun.
I am so blessed with the people I have in my life. I didn't always used to be, honestly. Like, I've definitely filtered through the shitty people these last couple years. I've closed off a lot of connections.
Chop that cleaver. Drop the cleaver.
Literally. And now I have,
Drop
like,
the guillotine.
All my best friends, you know, we'll go to I'm in the rave community in Colorado, and we're out at shows all the time. And my friends will literally come up to me if they see me sitting down for a second. They're like, "Are you okay? Does your back hurt? Do you need anything?" I'm like, "No, I just need to breathe for a second."
Like, did you see how I was dancing out there?
Did you see me headbanging over there? Like, I just need a minute.
It's just like a green flash.
Right. But the green has like, if you see green anywhere, it's me. The green has become a personality trait at this point. Okay. Like, it entered the hair and it never left. But it's so good to have people around me that they want to check on me. They want to make sure I'm having a good time. They're not sitting there like, "Oh, Taylor's out here like harshing the mood again because her back hurts." They want to make sure I'm okay.
Well, it's because you know that complaining is stupid.
Right. I'm also not gonna, like, I could be having the worst time too, and I'd still be like, "No, this is great. You guys have so much fun." I could just be like,
"I'm just gonna hang out here for a minute,"
clenching my teeth, like gripping down in the seats at the venue, and I was like, "Nope, I'm having a great time. You guys have so much fun," because I'm not gonna ruin their time either. Just because I'm going
what are you
gonna
do? Like, you're in pain. Like, what else do you do?
What can you do? Smoke a joint, do something like that. I mean, my mother's been in pain, like I was telling you, with her back for so long.
Seriously.
She'll have a glass of wine, smoke some pot, you know, to ease her pain a little bit. She doesn't want the nonsense, but she's also tired of talking about it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can relate to that. Like, she's like, "I don't want to talk about my pain."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, it's one of those things, like, I'm happy to discuss it in scenarios like this where it's like it raises awareness, and, you know, like, I didn't know I had this disease. I didn't know it existed. I just had this pain for so many years, and then I found out what it was, and it turns out doctors don't know what it is, so it's kind of my responsibility, I feel like, to share information about this certain thing. But I'm also like, I lived so much of my life just being like, I'm in pain, and letting that kind of just be my existence for a while. And it wasn't worth it anymore. And so it's one of those, like, if, you know, you're new in my life, or for certain things like this, I'll explain it. But I don't love talking about it, like, all the time, because I want to be more than just my chronic illnesses. And I feel like most people who have chronic illnesses or chronic pain can relate to that. Like,
so it's the ego, all right?
Yeah.
So I've been reading, like, this stuff on the ego and how to remove ourselves from attaching ourselves with thoughts.
Yes.
Because if we observe our own thoughts and then observe our own emotions, then it actually removes us from feeling those emotions, because now we are an observer of our emotions.
Exactly.
And too often the ego naturally, like, clings on to things, right? So it's like, you know, I have pain, I have this pain. The ego is like naturally being like, I identify with having this pain, right? But that's the ego can be removed. It could, you know, you could be like, no. And so there's like all those different aspects. And I think it's great to have this conversation, because a lot of people are out there dealing with a lot of tough things, and it's not easy.
And some people are scared to, like, get further help, you know, like, some people don't want to go look for a doctor that's going to listen to them because they've reached the point where they don't think any doctor is going to listen to them. And having to advocate for yourself in those scenarios can be really difficult, especially if you're, like, a kind of soft-spoken individual. Like
you don't know how to stand up to yourself.
Right.
Like, stand up for yourself.
Like, my best friend, when she had to get her gallbladder taken out as well, and she was texting me the whole time, like, what do I tell them? Like, where do I go? What do I do? Well, they're saying it could be this. I'm like, Kara, stand up for yourself. You need to tell them, I know it's not this because I've done XYZ thing. Tell them it's this. Like, it's one of those things I feel like you don't necessarily develop the ability to do without having to deal with, like, a lot of chronic issues. Like, I learned it from my mom. My mom has Lyme disease, and
oh, wow.
Yeah, and so watching her advocate for herself over the years and have to be like, no, something is wrong with me. Just because your test isn't showing something's wrong with me doesn't mean there's not something wrong with me. That gave me the resilience I needed to be able to be like, no, you're right, something is wrong with me. Why aren't you fuckers finding out what's wrong with me? Like,
sure.
Can we not check the minimum boxes today, please?
Right.
Can we just do a little bit extra on this
Seriously, can we at least, like, look at the chart notes and see what tests have already come back negative so we're not wasting anyone's time?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And not everyone, fortunately, not everyone has been put in a scenario where they've had to advocate for themselves, but I think it makes it really difficult when they do get into that scenario to actually do it. Because, like, I've even seen people who are like, I'm scared that my doctor, like, won't keep me as a patient if I stand up to him, or if I disagree with my doctor, what if they don't, like, send me to where I need to go to the right specialist or something because he doesn't agree with me or she doesn't agree with me, you know? And I feel like there's a lot of stigma in advocating for yourself in healthcare. And it's unfortunate, but healthcare also isn't really healthcare anymore. I feel like it's health management.
It's a business.
Yeah. Like, I think people like their Band-Aids and they like their quick fixes, but they don't actually want to solve the problems. It's easier to cover up the problems and just, like, not acknowledge them anymore than actually solve it. So props to people who actually solve it, and props to the medical professionals out there who actually listen.
Thank you. Because I was about to, like, make
Small
sure.
percentage.
Yeah, I was about to make, because there's a lot of people out there that really do care about their patients.
It's true.
Yep.
And, like, just like.
I'd name drop my doctor, but I don't want him getting too busy that I can't go in.
Yeah, probably not. You don't want to do that.
Nope.
But I'm glad you have a great doctor.
Amazing.
Oh, no, that's definitely, it's hard to find that. So, awesome getting to know you on this. We do like to ask every single guest that comes on the program, though. Kev, do you want to shoot the question?
Oh, the question. The almighty Discussion Combustion podcast question that every guest has to answer 220 times. We've done this now. So if you could offer one piece of advice to humanity that would better everyone tomorrow when they start their day, what would that be?
Your mind is equally as important to take care of as your body, if not more so.
I like it.
I feel like you can't have balance without taking care of both. And I feel like the mind gets neglected a lot more than the body does.
I will agree with that.
That is good advice for sure. And we kind of dove into some of the reasons to support that on this episode. Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, and so fucking what I'm going to say is go on a walk, because that is going to
move your body. Movement is medicine.
Yes. That's going to help your mind. You know, you're getting out into nature, you're being around trees and stuff like that, which actually trees provide oxygen.
Yeah.
So obviously they're high energy, good calibration, good attractive fields there.
Yeah.
And so you're surrounding yourself with that stuff. You're moving your body. Movement is medicine, like you just said.
Yep.
So yeah, let's work on our minds as much
Go
as
touch
we want to.
grass.
Yeah. And it's like you know, instead of, like, you know, changing how you look or whatever, maybe work on accepting yourself for who you are before you start trying to radically change stuff too.
Absolutely.
I don't know. There's a lot there. There's
back to the
yeah,
roots.
and in terms of the movement too, like, you know, a big thing with me that got me into yoga, I can't move my body the way a lot of other people can. So just because you see one person moving a certain way doesn't mean you have to move that way. Move your body in a way that feels good for you, but you will never, ever, ever regret putting some amount of movement into your day. It'll help you physically. It'll help you mentally. Move your body.
I mean, a body in motion stays in motion, and a body at rest will tend to stay at rest.
Absolutely.
So we got to keep it moving. We got to get up. We got to move around.
We got to go stretch, y'all.
We're going to have to go out and touch grass and do yoga.
Let's do it. That sounds like a great night,
We're going to take our shoes off and our socks, and we're going to ground ourselves for 15 minutes out in the grass.
Sounds kind of nice.
I say it's actually
I don't know what
very
happened to our
meditative.
Earth rocks, but
They're somewhere in here.
they might be somewhere in here.
Yeah, they need to get charged. We have some rocks that haven't been in the
Last
sun.
night was the full moon. You guys should have done it.
Oh.
Was it a full moon last night? It was raining.
Interesting.
Yeah, I guess
There's
I didn't
two
realize.
full moons this month.
Really?
Oh.
That's exciting.
I know.
As we're in the Leo.
Happy Leo season.
Yeah, we didn't even get into that. That's a whole. That's when you come back on the next episode.
Say, I'll talk astrology. I'll talk all the hippie woo woo shit. Like.
That's fun.
No,
That's fun.
we'll get you back in here. We will.
Yeah, for
but,
sure.
Are you taking appointments for haircuts?
Not at the moment. I'm
Okay.
getting my schedule kind of figured out, but with only working 1 day a week,
Yeah.
my books are currently closed. You can, however, hit me up for personal yoga education on my yoga page, A Slightly Broken Yogi.
A slightly broken yogi.
Is there anything else that you want to plug? Of course, we'll include everything in the show notes down below. So if you're listening or watching, scroll down, get in touch with Taylor. Where do they go?
Just because you can't get in with me doesn't mean you can't get in with one of the other lovely ladies at my salon. So go check out Strand's Hair Studio in Littleton. Our owner, Lindsay, is amazing, and every single one of the girls there will take amazing care of you. You can find me there on Saturdays. Otherwise, you can keep up with my Instagram at hairbytaylorm or at A Slightly Broken Yogi, and we can always keep in contact there.
Perfect.
Fantastic.
Perfect. No, great having you on.
Thank
so
you.
much fun. Awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome energy, especially with overcoming things. But I feel like people who do face their demons, open up the door to them. Like I like to open up the door to the demon and then start choking it out immediately. I'm like, oh yeah, you knocked on this fucking
You're
door.
done. You're done.
Yeah, so we're gonna keep demolishing the demons. I love the energy. Yeah, we're going to keep it rolling. Thanks, Lori, for that. Everybody tuning in.
Thanks, Lori.
Yes. Thank you so much.
We love you, Lori. Thanks for everyone that supported this show. 220 episodes in. Absolutely incredible. Everyone that's on this YouTube channel right now, you already know we have a major show coming out tomorrow. It's called Happy Friday America. It's going to be awesome. So be sure to hang with us over there. Very different than what we do here at Discussion Combustion. We hang out and have fun here on DCPC. Happy Friday America. You're not going to want to miss it. We're going to get out of here. Taylor, thanks again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And the people, what they got to do, Art?
Be good to yourselves. You deserve it.
Hell yeah.
Nice.